Welcome to the hills of California for round number 9 of the Indy Pro 2000 Championship here at iRacing. We're in Laguna, Seca, one of the most famous tracks in the world for any sport of racing, open wheel, sports car, and especially MotoGP. And a very interesting round, a very different track than what we saw last week at Daytona. My name is Jonathan Berg. Alongside me is Tom Davis. Hugo Luis is down at the production booth with track cams provided by Esteban Ballo and Track Cams 22. Like I said, week 9, we were at Daytona last week, a fantastic drag race to the line, and I'm sure this week is just going to be just as much of a treat. And then we have 3 more weeks to go. USA Speedway, our final oval of the season, followed by Spa and Barber. Take a look at the championships. Amadema for TNT Racing currently leading the way, and then 2 and 3. Christoph Herbigno for Delta Sport U4K, and Everett Paddock in P3. Micheline Green P4th, and Emil Bernstorff in P5, not too far off. Any of these drivers really still in contention, all the way down to Frank Nguyen in 8th, can take the crown. Well, as qualifying is underway here, I'm going to bring in my colleague Tom Davis. And Tom, what are you expecting big for this week?
I mean, Laguna Seca is maybe one of the hardest tracks ever to predict at. I would say it's got a little bit of everything. We know we're going to get tight racing. The question is, where are these cars going to be able to find the overtake? Because obviously there's the move on the brakes into the Andretti hairpin, which is the first real corner, although technically turn 2. But none of the corners offer that definitive pass. It generally carries for 2 or 3 further turns. And that always gives people the opportunity to fight back, and once people are fighting hard, more cars get involved, and before you know it, you've got a classic, chaotic Indy Pro 2000 race. And
I'm sure we're expecting lots of chaos here as we go through the corkscrew. This is Amadema on their qualifying lap. We're in turn 9, the rainy curve now. They're following the round down to turn 10 and 11. Slower corners here, at least in turn 11's case, but it's not really a big passing corner. It's a very, very tight apex right here.
Yeah, the trick with turn 11 is almost more to see if you can make your rival cover the inside, and then you can get a better exit on them all the way down here, because you're flat across the checkered line. Then you get to this part is turn 1, still flat, wait until you see those white lines. Those are your braking marker for this hairpin. This is the Andretti hairpin. Pretty nice, wide and open. You'll notice the track comes back towards you on the exit. That then allows you to fight up towards turn 3. As I was about to say, you need to be careful with the dirt on turn-in because you use all the road, and Medem actually taking a little bit too much liberty with that one.
There's Constant, I believe, an undercut racing, just kind of chilling out in third position. There is a McLaren-inspired machine in the 13. A Vesparelli running on track, and oh no, here is Greg Seitz in the number 1 machine. Hasn't been seen that often this season racing this series, the defending champion, but he is running for Rust Racing this weekend, and at least according to our stat sheets, he's been lighting up the sessions he's been in.
Yeah. 3/10 faster than anybody else is the general view. Whether it's in the race, whether it's just setting lap times, he's had the measure of near enough everybody in this field. Having said that, only goes P3 on that lap, so Greg will be hoping for an improvement. You know, it does take a lap to get the tires in and all that sort of stuff, so you would expect him to go notably quicker than that. There was only a few people in the 16s. Greg was definitely one of those. He was getting towards the mid-16s, whereas everyone else was kind of scraping their way into them.
Right now sits third, still has another lap to go to try and pip Cortez and Bernstoff of that front row start. As you mentioned, only 17 drivers in the session today, and we're looking on board with the helmet cam. This is a brilliant view up towards the corkscrew, shipping into gear 5 and then hard on the brakes. As gentle as you can be. This is where a lot of places can go wrong.
Yeah, I've raced here in a Mazda. That was quick enough for me. This thing really does show you just how quick the circuit is. That on the inside, you might have seen a big red thing. That is a massive sausage curve. There's a few of those positioned around the circuit. Another one at apex of 11 there. You need to watch those in these machines, because if you hit them, there's a chance your tire just says bye-bye and goes on holiday. Greg Seitz across the line. Does he improve?
Yes.
Yes, he does. He goes top 69.80. So again, he's the only person to the 16s, but it's not the big margin he's had so far.
And what can Bornsdorf and Cortez do from second and third? Will Redford as well, a series regular from fourth, not too far behind. So qualifying wrapping up here. And here's our starting lineup. Greg Seitz lining up P1 for the number 1. Emil Bernsdorf in P2 for the number 2. Lucas Cortez in P3. Will Redford in P4. Maximum Coulson in P5. Fidel Fernandez in P6. And Medema in P7. What can they do from that position? Lining up next to teammate Martin Onrulis from TNT. Lumbo Valsidrikaya, her best qualifying, I think, this season so far in our broadcast races, in 9th. David Dendelot for Undercut in P10. Fabio Berchel for TNT in P11. Adam Isaacson in P12. Greg Newen, the Canadian, in 13th. David Meneth in 14th after that kind of bad start to the Daytona race for him. Robert Escudio in 15th, Connor Melia in 16th, and Claudio Vesparelli in 17th. A field of only 17 drivers this week, but there's going to be plenty of action all the way around. So you can see Medema, what can he do from this far back in the grid? And really, we have a full pace lap around here, so we're going to see the full sights and sounds of Laguna Seca and kind of highlight some of the big passing areas and places where things can go very, very wrong. Because, like, as we mentioned, this course was built as a bike course, mainly, not as an open wheel circuit.
Yeah, the section that takes you infield towards turns 3 and 4 was actually added so that it would reach the required length to host MotoGP, is the simple way of putting it. It was always a bike circuit, and then we ended up at the current layout because they wanted it to keep being a bike circuit. It produces that inherently strange challenge when you take a car here, because it's one of the few places in the world that wasn't designed to race cars, so you do need a little bit of a different skill. The overtakes are inherently more bike-like, you know, you've got to drift your way up the inside rather than already having the overlap necessarily. You've got to look for the cutbacks and the block passes, and as we see when we get these unique tracks on the calendar, you know, we went to Long Beach, was a similar idea. It's just a slightly different skill set, and you'll see slightly different people rise to the top.
Yeah, it's slightly different skill set and slightly different people as well. We've kind of noted Greg Sainz returning for a one-off race, but there's some regulars that we've seen over the past few weeks not in this race. Some may wonder why that is. Well, there is a fixed Indy 500 running this weekend, and many of those guys on those big teams probably considering running that one and trying to get it in the top split for that main show. And you can see that as well tomorrow night as we go through the section of 3 and 4. This is honestly one of my favorite sections of the Laguna Seca, coming out of turn 4 on the run down to turn 5 underneath the Mother's Bridge, because you just feel like you're always on edge. And then that flowy section at turn 5, it's just a great feeling in a race car.
Yeah, you'll break down, and remember those social curve we mentioned? There's another one on the inside, the big red rectangle. You want to try and get as close to that as you can, because you need the speed as you then ascend the hill towards turn 6, because 6 is very quick as well. But if you try to take a little bit too much speed, you try to narrow up the corner that little bit too much, you're off. It's as simple as that, and there's no runoff at Laguna Seca, it's just desert. You go off, you're going to lose a lot of time. Of course, another place where it's very easy to go off is the top of this hill, Laguna Seca. If you don't think of the corkscrew, you don't think of Laguna Seca, you don't think of Rossi versus Stoner, Rossi passing off the circuit on the dirt inside that apex, you can see, you're doing it wrong. Mega, mega race. If anything, it was that one that made me fall in love with motor racing and why you've got to put up with my Scottish accent here this evening. But they're coming towards the end of their pace lap now. They'll come through Rainy Curve and in towards turn 10, which we've seen another one of those sausage curves, and hope you got the tyres up to pressure and hope that you can get it down the inside of sights into the hairpin.
What can that number 2 machine do against Greg Seif and Emil Bernstorff on the outside? But what can Will Redford do as lights are out in the pace car? We are green, and immediately Seitz gets defensive, goes down the inside, covering off Bernstorff for the moment. Will Redford is closing very, very quickly. Bernstorff very defensive, unable to attack the 1 machine. Instead, it's actually going to be the 6 machine of Cortez and the 5 of Redford going to be fighting for P3. Clean start so far.
Oh, clean start and maybe a little bit of contact in the background. Immediately, Bernstorff says, hang on, Seitz, you're not getting away here. He closes up, wanting to try and disrupt the rhythm that Seitz is so famous for. There's the contact. That was Cortez getting involved potentially with Redford, was it? No, it was the 15 machine of Cousin. So Cousin's race is over, as you'd expect, given he's only got 3 wheels. As for the blue one, maybe 3.5 wheels on there as we head up the hill. Here's turn 6, and now we get towards the corkscrew for the first time.
Bernstorff, the Spaniard, a little bit off there, losing some time. Sainz getting away. Cortez now definitively in 3rd place now that Redford in the dirt. And single throttle through the corkscrew. That 2 car, it's been putting a lot of pressure on this first lap, but just not able to get around. Looks like the rest of the field were single file. Limbo Vostrukaya, biggest mover so far. She's up 3 places since the start of the race. Incredible drive, and she's putting pressure on current points leader Ann Medema.
Yeah, great start from Lyubov. You'll notice it's because not only has she made up those places, she's on the back of Medema, like you mentioned. She's not lost time doing it. Here's a replay of the incident. Oh, it's just 2 into 1, you'd have to say. 15 drifts out the way. Always turning in is Cosson, and they're always going to have contact.
So another rut freak for Redford. He's down on pit road. Cosson, I believe.
This one, nobody thinking that the lunging...
I hope not, because I would want to keep at least all 4 wheels on the car and not, you know, become a tricycle or a bicycle if there's contact. As we head now into the heavy braking zone at turn 11. This is a corner like when I've run in this car and several other cars, you can just get so wrong every time. And getting in that runoff area can really upset it. As will the Canadian make a lunge down the Andretti hairpin. Berchtold in his sights, looking, no. Thinks better of it. Berchtold, really good defensive line. It's just a Dendelot of undercut right in front, TNT in 10th, and then Canadian running out in the top 10. A little bit far away from Manolis, not being able to put any pressure on. He's almost a second behind. What's dropping from the order is Escarduro in the 17 machine. I'm wondering if he's heading off somewhere in turn 3.
Yeah, nobody's gone with him, so potentially hitting one of those sausage curves or ending up. Here's the replay. The 17 machine's the one we're watching. Just loses the rear, trying to get on the power too early. Maybe a little bit of dirty air off the car in front, so less rear grip and around Robert Wendt. Fortunately, no damage, so he'll be able to get going again.
Speaking of damage, as we look at the replay, Newman has put some damage on the TNT race as he's dived down the inside to Fabio Berchtold, going into turn 6, able to get the move done. And now the Canadian will set off on the undercut racing of Dundalot as Isaacson goes around, lights up the rear tires, and is down to 14th. That was a huge cloud of smoke going into a section of the racetrack you do not want to have a cloud of smoke from.
No, certainly not. It was the sausage curb, I think. Definitely bottomed out as they hit the compression there through turn number 10. And, well, when the tires aren't on the ground, you've not got any grip, to put it simply.
Everyone's trying to use as much of the racetrack as possible. It's kind of the fastest way around. You need to use as much of this racetrack as possible. It's not wide. It's not made to be 2 and 3 wide constantly all the way around. It's a very flowy kind of single car circuit. Again, much like a circuit would be made for MotoGP, as we had mentioned. But Cortez now looking like he might challenge Bernstorff for second place. He's been closing in the past lap or two. He was a couple tenths faster than Cortez last time by, or Bernstorff, excuse me. Now riding on board with the helmet cam. This is just a great view just through the hills of these last few corners here. Just getting a really good perspective of just the elevation changes and really the line changes you have to take.
Yeah, Cortez in third position is actually maintaining the gap to sights. Bernstorff's just been traversing between the two, going backwards in towards the purple machine. So Cortez will want to make progress quickly here, lest they lose touch with the leader. And we all know that from last season, if Greg Seitz gets the chance to break away, he's going to take it and grab it with 2 hands. He'll run away with that one if he's given the opportunity. So Cortez needs to play it cleverly, get the move done, but don't lose too much time doing it, much like what Leopold managed off the start, actually.
Yeah, might be waiting for like the tires to wear off on Bernstorff and Sainz's machines. You know, might be waiting for his machine to kind of get up to temperature in terms of tire temps and handling, as Bernstorff a little bit slower in that first sector, now backing up into Cortez. Spaniard might be under fire here in just a second. Time the 6th thought about a lunge into the corkscrew, thinks better of it, as that could have ended both of their days. I think Cortez is now getting the feeling that he knows he's faster. The South Carolina native going to try and put the hurt on Emil Bernstorff, as Fernandez, I believe, has had a moment. He's just lost out to Medema and Osterkaya and a Dendalot, so we'll get a replay or at least a view of that in just a few moments' time, but let's stick with this battle. Cortez has a big slipstream down. Is he going to be late in the brakes into the Andretti hairpin? The 2 knows he's coming, and here comes Cortez down the inside. No, last of the late breakers going to Bernstorff. The Spaniard holds on, but him playing defensive is not going to help. And let's get a view of Fidel Fernandez. No, just drifts it into the corkscrew and noses it right into the outside wall. Running in 4th position.
Yeah, not anymore. Running in 4th position. They're running a little bit further down and is in the pits, actually. So it's easily done, because you got to remember, when you enter the corkscrew, you can't see the second half of it. You can't see much of it, to be honest, as you come over the crest. So you just turn in that little bit too early. You're on the dirt before you've even seen the dirt, and then of course it's going round in this sort of machine with so much power and, to be honest, so little rear grip once you started to lose it, as we've seen. Still, the 6 car applies the pressure. For a moment, I thought Bernstorff might have been struggling with overheated front tires. They were running very wide on the exits, implying that they were stepping on the gas, but the front end wasn't gripping. But now the 2 cars seems to have got control of it. I need to be careful with track limits there, actually, too, because if you go too far beyond that curve, you'll start picking up 1Xs, which is not what you want.
Yeah, you can sacrifice 1 or 2 here or there to try and chase down a defending series champion, as Bernstorff is trying to do. Very late on the brakes for Cortez, almost into the rear gearbox of the number 2 machine. You also mentioned, you know, getting it off the curbing, getting in air, but how light these things are, and they're only going to get lighter as the race goes on, so it's going to be a lot easier for those curbs and really those hills in the corkscrew to be much more of a problem.
Yeah, the car's floaty at the best of the times. I remember hearing about when last time Moto America came here, 2020 race. The baggers came with them, so you had these huge Harley Davidsons amongst a couple other bikes as well, coming down the corkscrew. And it was just mental. It was so strange to watch. It was an oxymoron in and of itself. So all sorts of vehicles get down here, but all of them have their own little problem. Nothing does it easily.
Now Bernstorff, I think he's officially, we can say, holding up Lucas Cortez just a little bit. He's a little bit slower through the third sector right there, and now the Spaniard has to be very, very careful of a lunge down the inside of the Andretti hairpin as another dose of slipstream is going to go to the Carolina native. Can he do anything to Bernstorff? Looks like not on this occasion. Wisely backs out of it. The other thing kind of enticing them is that we can see there's a fourth car up the road that is not Greg Seitz, so that is not a lead lap car. That is Cosson, who is returned to running after that earlier mix-up with Will Redford. So maybe they're both thinking, well, if that one machine gets held up, we have a chance to go chase him down.
Yeah, here's the view of Cosson in the 15, of course, caught up in that awkward 2-into-1 incident at turn 4 on the opening lap. Now, to be honest, not lapping that quickly. Last time round, an 18.3 for Cosson, 17.5 for your leader Greg Seitz. So that gap's going to come down pretty quickly, and eventually Maxime's going to have kind of the, well, I got to get out of the way, but at the same time I'm a racer, and lifting my foot off the throttle is sacrilegious. I can't be doing that, so going to be faced with sort of a moral dilemma, if you like.
And it also depends kind of just on his agenda. Like, he's 3 laps down. I think in Seitz, Bernstorff, and Cortez mind, this 15 machine should get out of the way. But if he's 15 laps down just kind of running his own race, then, well, he can run his own races. It looks like he lets Seitz have the inside line going into the Andretti hairpin. There you can see the 15 now in the picture. Now in this fight for second. Down the inside comes the 2 and the 6. Very respectful driving there from the 15 machine. A couple laps down. And there's the 16 of Arnoldus, who all of a sudden has appeared as the top TNT driver in here as he's gotten around now, Frank Newen. TNT now sits 4th, 7th, and 11th. Only Birchhold outside the top 10 for the moment, so good running right there for them, and a good late mid-race charge in that 16 machine. He was kind of all by his lonesome in 11th just a few laps ago when we checked in on this mid-pack battle.
I'm surprised how much space was left to him by Frank Newen, though. I'll be honest. I half expected that to be a little bit more iffy and Newen to cover the inside and it'd be a case of get out of it or to try and stay in the slipstream under braking, but Newen instead just said, yeah, you can have the inside if you want it, and kind of led him through, which was very respectful. Maybe didn't want to lose time given that the cars behind, at the time Arnoldus, now Newen, are not that far behind Newen, so didn't want to get caught out by more than one driver. At the front, still very close. Cortez almost looks even closer than he was before, but to be honest, you won't be able to get any tighter to the back of the 2 machine without actually passing it.
No, the problem is the straightaway is just not long enough, I don't think, for the slipstream. A little bit of a mistake there, I think, from Bernstorff. He seemed like he was a bit heavy on the brakes, locked it up, maybe going into the corner, and Cortez almost in the back of him. That cost him each about half a second. And now all of a sudden, setting sail is Greg Seitz in the Rust Racing machine.
Yeah, this is exactly what Seitz wanted, isn't it? His worst possible scenario would have been Bernstorff is easy for Cortez, and then Cortez drags Bernstorff with him on the way to catching the leader. The exact opposite as that happened. Bernstorff has been very difficult for Cortez to try and find a way past, and as a result, Greg has just been eking out a 10th of a second here, a 10th of a second there, and the gap's now at 1.8, coming towards 2 seconds within a lap or so, you'd say. And how many times have we seen Greg Seitz close down once he's got a 2-second margin? Maybe once ever in this championship. It's not a common occurrence.
I doubt lap traffic or anything like that is going to factor in as well. Many of these drivers are pretty far up the road. The next one is the 17 machine. So Seitz may have a clear path setting sail. Looking back through the field, here's a good battle. Isaacson trying to recover from that mistake earlier, has Dave Mena in front of him. Mena getting very defensive, trying to go to the inside. Is Isaacson going to do it? Nope, not on this occasion. You can see that big jolt of oversteer coming into play, and now Isaacson, he's extremely close. I'm expecting a huge lunge down going into the Andretti hairpin. He's looking. He has to go the long way around. on the Illinois native. Is the Scandinavian going to be able to hold it tight through the Andretti hairpin? But good respectful racing. Menev holds on, but Isaacson has now the inside of turn 3. And the 3 car in turn 3 able to clear. That's brought up Berchtold back into the fight. Berchtold looking to make TNT. All 3 starters in the top 10. That would be a fantastic way to finish this race.
Yeah, that move at turn 3, not as easy as it looks. It's very easy to get squeezed towards the inside by the guy who's on your left, the right-hander, and before you know it, you just can't carry any corner speed. So actually cleverly done by Isaacson as they aim to keep on moving up the order. A surprisingly tricky maneuver, shall we say. It's not necessarily difficult. It's not as hard as anything silly. There's a little bit of a lock-up entry to the corkscrew, which is the last place you wanted, but it isn't the simple move that it would appear if you've not driven the circuit.
Especially given, again, how tight those two were. Menev was trying to give as much space as possible, and now Isaacson can go hunt Vesparelli, which we should kind of give a little shout-out to. He started 17th in the number 13 machine and is up to 9th. So that McLaren-inspired livery doing quite well. Yeah, there we go. Started 17th, up to 9th, up 8 spots. Biggest move of the field so far. The only other one would be Lyubov Ovtsurkaya, the Russian, in 5th. He started 9th and has gone for 5th. He's kind of on her lonesome right now, and the 13 is trying to chase down Frank Newen. Back up with your leaders, and Lucas Cortez getting a little sick of looking at the rear wing of Emil Bernstorff.
Bernstorff's doing a very good job of not making a mistake. It's an easy thing to say, but it's a very, very difficult thing to do when you've got the constant pressure coming from Lucas Cortez. As we do that, commentators curse a little bit deep through turn number 10, but doesn't allow themselves to lose traction on the dirt, is just cautious with the rear end, and again, there was never an opportunity for Lucas Cortez. You get the feeling that as soon as there is one, Lucas is going to pounce on it, but the door is yet to be left open properly by Bernstorff. We'll get towards another of the big opportunities here, turn 2, the Andretti hairpin. But look, it's not necessarily a defensive line, but it's just a line that doesn't ever leave the inside available.
We're talking about a driver in Emil Bernstorff that has plenty of experience. Ran in.
Whoa!
Oh, yeah. And might have to use some of that experience as he's going to have to defend on the inside. He lunges down the inside after getting off track. Bernstorff trying to be feisty around Cortez. And Cortez is going to have to look back to the inside and look in turn 6. I was going to say something informational there, but someone decided to make it interesting.
Yeah, there's the commentator's curse if ever you've seen that. I'm talking about how brilliant Bernstorff is at not making mistakes and goes and makes a pretty massive one, but then shows the resolve of how strong and confident he is on the defense. The fact that that didn't even cost him the place. He was happy to cover the inside and run the risky potential defense at turn 6 as well, and again into the corkscrew, and now we're just back where we were, and this is why Cortez is yet to find a way through, because Bernstorff, to be honest, seems way happier defending than we've seen them when they're attacking.
Bernstorff, a driver with plenty real-life racing experience, did run in the GP3 series, now known as Formula 3, for quite some time in 2014 and 2015. A few starts in 2013, and he did run GP2 just for 2 races in 2016. So this is a driver with plenty of experience on the real-world side up against Lucas Cortez from Carolina. They're both putting on a fantastic show, but if they start fighting too much, might be a problem. And no, able to save it.
That could have gone a lot worse. That could have been an awful lot worse. It's very easy to have it just slide in towards the inside barrier, as we saw somebody do earlier, actually. But a shame for Vesparelli. We were just speaking about how good the race had been and how many places they gained, and as we can see, there's a chance of covering that, defending it, as we now ride on board with Cortez on the right-hand side of your picture. Usual TV view on the left, descend through the corkscrew. Here's one of the more tricky corners on the circuit, rainy curve. You're never really on the brakes for it, you're always accelerating, but just managing the throttle, managing the grip, and actually a little bit wrong there for Cortez. Went deep, and as you can see, compromised the line through 10. That means you're then slow on the run to 11, and that just gives Bernstorff a couple tenths. That means he's not under pressure and towards the big braking zone at turn 2.
Just the way Bernstorff is running his racing line, I think it's just putting him in perfect defensive positions at the places where he needs to be. Because going down into the Andretti hairpin, he has just enough room where Cortez is just a little anxious about making a lunge. Heading down into turn 5, another place where you can make a lunge. That 2 machine has stuck pretty good to the pavement so far, except for that one mistake earlier. Then down the Rahal straightaway going into the corkscrew, he's not giving up a lot of time either. So it's just frustrating if you're the number 6 machine, because it's like I want to get around him, I feel like I'm faster. But there's nothing much Cortez can do besides hope for another mistake and maybe hope for another opportunity to pounce. He's closed up 2 or 3 tenths already through turn 6. Closing all the time, but nothing doing on this occasion just because of the way the corkscrew is and the way the track flows out. A gap from 4 tenths back to 6th. The good news is, though, they're not under threat for anything for quite some time. Madema and Astirkaya are several seconds behind, and by several I mean at least 10. It's about to be 10 as soon as they cross the line.
Yeah, they've got a good margin, which, to be honest, plays into the hands of Lucas Cortez more than anybody, because he can send one, and if it goes wrong, or they both just lose a ton of time, so what? Madema's 10 seconds down the road. You have time to spin and get moving again before Anna's going to be in for you. So it's a nice spot to be in for Cortez. For Bernstorff, if anything, it's a little bit of a disadvantage because it just opens up that aggressive move for Cortez if he wants it. I think there's a chance that Bernstorff isn't running as much downforce as the cars around him, which is why every time we reach turn 2, the gap's just that little bit too big. But then in the rest of the lap, this whole infield section, and again at turn 6 as they're about to get to, he's not as quick, not able to carry the speed through the corners, but has it on the straightaway.
Now under fire again from Fabio Berchtold in the 10 machine. Trying to make it at all TNT top 10, all 3 of the drivers trying to find it. Madema's in 4th for the number 4. Arnoldas is up to 7th and might get 6th at the rate he's closing in on David Dendelot. Berchtold trying to put the number 10 in P10. Good draft right here, good run through the corkscrew, Meneth a little sideways. He's just going to need a big draft, I think, down that front straightaway. That's really the only opportunity that we've seen, besides that brief mistake from Emil Bernstorff, we've seen good passes happen, is down that run out of turn 11.
Yeah, and this is where it starts. This is turn 11. You want to come in, get on the throttle really early, and to be honest, I almost expected Berchtold to take an early braking zone there to try and cut across on the throttle as quickly as possible. Doesn't do that, and almost as a result of it, I think, isn't quite close enough. He's got a lot in hand on the brakes in comparison to the car ahead. It was the same in the corkscrew, I think, but not able to use that because the gap, similar to what it is for P2, just that tiny bit too big to try a lunge.
Again, that straightaway not long enough to make that draft really, really effective. We saw him closing a little bit as we got to the point of the Andretti straightaway, but again, it's just such a deep braking zone. Due to the way that curve is, it's just, you can't really make a lunge without risking locking up or risking your car and your competitor's car for that matter in this battle.
Someone in chat just wanted to make sure that Emil is definitely not Spanish. He would rather be Portuguese, but he says he's British, and according to the Wikipedia, we're going British-Danish, so we apologize for that, Emil. Didn't realize that Spanish was so far from the truth, if you like. Nguyen picks up position, as does Isaacson, so a mistake for Kendall. There he is, way off the road. Not quite sure how you end up on the right-hand side of the dirt there. Maybe an oversteer moment coming through turn number 10?
Maybe just trying to find the fast... Yeah, you were right. Woo.
Well.
Who was the one driving through the smoke on that one? Was that Arnoldas just driving through? Yes, our apologies. He is British-Danish. I was trying to get to that point, but Bernstorff made a mistake.
Yeah.
That's what happened. I had that train of thought in my head. But British-Danish currently in Portugal. And again, with GP3 and GP2 experience, so plenty of real-life experience and showing it to great avail here. We'll get a replay. This is from Arnoldas. Let off the throttle, didn't even brake though, just a slight let off the throttle.
Yeah, just like, well, if there's smoke there, that means the car's already been in that position, so I'll go for it. And it works pretty well for them. Here's Isaacson in the 3 machine. We saw a great race. Was it back at Sebring from Isaacson last season? somewhat has had a few really good races, but hasn't quite managed to string them together over the season. Nguyen is the car ahead. Isaacson got a little bit more on the brakes. Does it compromise the exit? Not really, to be honest. If anything, it was Nguyen that went deep at turn 11. So Isaacson's looking in a solid position, currently running 8th, but could be as high as 6th within a couple of laps, you'd have to say.
Yeah, it looks like that 16 machine maybe a tad bit slower. Arnoldus was closing in on the number 12 machine, but has since kind of been left behind. He's a bit slower, about a 10th slower last time around. And then Nguyen and Isaacson, I think Isaacson feels like he's definitely a faster machine, and the timing does confirm it. 4/10ths faster than our Canadian of Frank Nguyen. So what can the 3 machine do, and where is he going to make a lunge? He's thinking about the corkscrew.
Yeah, somebody start the chant of corkscrew. Corkscrew, here it comes. You need the run out of turn number 6. To be honest, he doesn't really have it. If he wants to move at the corkscrew, he's going to have to really commit to it, and isn't quite brave, or potentially not quite stupid enough, I think would actually be the decision from that far back. Here's a rainy curve, tightening through turn 9, avoid the sausage. Now you can try it again. Get power early through turn 10. The move is open at turn 11. That's not viable. We'll close up on the brakes as they did last lap. Another moment for Nguyen. Doesn't seem to have the rear tires underneath him as he would like. And here comes the opportunity.
Isaacson getting the draft now. It's a lot closer than we've seen for the battle for P2, for example. And it's going to be a lunge on the inside. The Canadian leaving him plenty of space. Good, respectful racing from Frank. As down the inside goes Isaacson, and he is clear to P7. And now what can he do to go chase down Arnoldus in P number 6? It looks like the 12 has kind of had a slow lap of Lumov Osterkaya. She was about 5/10ths off the pace last lap. Wondering if that was just a lockup or something. There you can see our Russian driver. So now the battle for the edge of the top 5 might be heating up here with just 4 laps to go. And Arnoldus sideways out of turn 5. How did he save that as Isaacson goes to P6, cuts back in front of the track in front of Nguyen? And he's going to have to quickly get up to speed if he doesn't want to get past in the corkscrew.
Yeah, here's the opportunity. Nguyen's not known for his aggressive sends, but might have tried it there. There was a lock-up ahead, actually, for Isaacson as well. A little puff of smoke left behind. Everybody's still running. Nguyen's now thinking, oh, there's an opportunity here, because that'll have heated up the rear tires just for a couple corners longer. Doesn't get the traction out of turn 10. The braking into turn 11, not quite as strong as Arnoldus. Gets a lovely exit, though, but you have to say again, that gap is that awkward sort of range whereby you'll be close, but not quite there.
It's around like 4 to 5/10ths, and that's the same way we've seen for the battle for P2. It's been just 4 or 5/10ths down the straightaway, and it's just not enough to use that draft and really hone in and make a move. And now Nguyen is going to have to try and fight around the 16. The 16's obviously having handling issues. That back end wants to go somewhere else, and Arnoldus has other ideas. He wants to send the back end on the track, where rear end of the car wants to go IRX racing.
Yeah, maybe the 16 was already heating up the tires since the initial moment, and then obviously that won't have helped the situation. And if you're having trouble with tire temps beforehand, you're not going to be able to bring them back down from their new elevated energy state. So nice hot rubber on the back of the 16 machine. Nguyen looking to take advantage, but as I say, Nguyen's not known for doing something silly. He's not known for trying the block pass. And to be honest, around this circuit, because it's designed for motorcycles, it has to be the block pass. It has to be something aggro, because that's how it's been made. And that just doesn't favor Nguyen's driving style. Again, Bernstorff is slow in mid-corner there, but it doesn't open the opportunity. And as long as the opportunity doesn't come, he'll stay P2 until the end.
Cortez has to have ascend, though, at some point. He's been behind his 2 machine since the drop of the green flag, and has only seen the Rust Racing machine at Greg's sides get smaller and smaller. Sainz hasn't ripped off a fast one yet. We were kind of joking before the broadcast of, again, he's run a 1:16.6 on the week. That is 3/10ths faster than any other race lap in session. As Cortez off in turn 6, that's going to compromise him for sure. But Bernstorff equally did not get that good of an exit. They're both fighting incredibly hard and trying to fight and stay in this one. And we should also point out the gap they've put on Amadema. That's 15 seconds.
It's massive. You know, we're talking about Bernstorff. Oh no, he's holding up Cortez. Yeah, but he's gapping everybody else in this field. He is going really, really quickly. Last time around was a 17.4 for Emil. His best is a 17.2. That's quicker than anybody watching could manage, that's for sure. Nguyen down the inside of Arnoldus. Is that a rainy curve? So the move might have happened in the corkscrew. That's a really, really good one from Nguyen. Coming back is Arnoldus, though. Close as you like on the entry towards turn 11. It's not an overlap, though. Nguyen's deep. Arnoldus is deeper. They're competing to see who can extend track limits the most. That might be a slowdown for Arnoldus, which will give Nguyen the easy position.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that 16 machine, if we mentioned again, those rear tires, they just might be lit up. They're too hot, too slick to keep that car underneath them. And now here comes the fight for P2, heating up again. Cortez looking to the inside, nothing doing on this occasion. Bernstorff holding.
This is where he's got the pace, because that lower downforce setup of the 2 car doesn't allow him to get on the power through turn 6 in the same way Cortez can, but then it allows him to carry more speed up the hill anyway. So again, the gap's big enough by the time they reach the corkscrew. They're now at Rainy Curve, where you'd expect Lucas to be quicker in the purple machine, but not able to utilize that grip. A touch of the dirt, as we've seen so many times, then up onto the non-coloured curbing, and before you know it, they'll be on the final lap of the race.
Now they're down the main straightaway. Greg Seitz, defending series champion, crosses the line to take the white flag, and Bernstorff and Cortez will fight for who gets to stay in second on the podium. Amadema's about 15 seconds back in P4. It's a good race for them. And Limbo Vostrikaya, again, started 9th, up 4 positions, doing a brilliant job in 5th, but our eyes are focused on this battle for second. Cortez has been sitting behind this 2 machine since the drop of the green flag. Heading now into turn 6, Bernstorff neat and tidy. We got to look, we go side by side with some of the other battles. This is a battle right at the edge of the top 10. Mena being held up, and that's Dendelot right ahead, and Birchhold 9, 8, and 10, fighting for 9, 10, and 11. Here comes Cortez looking into the corkscrew. Gonna make a lunge on the last lap. Is he gonna do it on the inside? Bernstorff a little bit sideways, and around the outside comes Lucas Cortez down to the inside of Rainy Curve, and the 6 machine is going to stand in front of the 2. A brilliant lunge. He locks it up a little bit on the dirt. Is the 2 going to come back of Bernstorff? Bernstorff looking to the inside, a lunge down into turn 11. They touch for a brief second, a lockup, and they touch, and the 6 goes around. Bernstorff takes second. Can he recover before Amadema gets around the corner? And while all this was going on, Greg Seitz happily walks away with a win, leading every lap. There is Madema, there is Osterkaya, there's Isaacson. Has Cortez gotten back running? It looks like yes. We wait and see the rest of the runners. The 8 machine of Mena trying to hold off Fabio Berchhold. Berchhold is trying to put all the TNT cars inside the top 10, but it looks like it was just not meant to be. Dave Mena with a brilliant defensive drive comes home P10. And Tom will get a replay of this one.
Yeah, it was a late lunge from the 2 car, but having seen it again, the 6 then reacts and comes across. Cortez is kind of like, oh, he's gone for it, and actually moves his car further left. It was also a late lunge into the corkscrew, so it was always going to get aggressive, and at that stage, you take what you're given.
Gloves, I think, came off in the white flag wave, but again, Greg Seitz, a brilliant drive, an impressive drive. I mentioned, well, how fast can you go? Well, he did rip off a 116, the only 116 in the race, and the 4th one that we've seen on the timing sheet. So brilliant job for him. Emil Bernstorff comes from 2nd, and Lucas Cortez, unfortunately, in 3rd. Amadema, a quiet race for Ann, but comes from P4 from Lumba Vostrikaya. A brilliant start from P9 to get to 6th, and then make her way to 5th. I think the first top 5 in her broadcast races for her. Adam Isaacson in 6th after coming from a spin. Frank Nguyen in 7th. Martin Anolis in 8th. David Dendelot in P9, and then Dave Meneth in P10. Fabio Berchhold unfortunately can't make it TNT, all in the top 10, comes home 11th. Claudio Vesparelli in P12, the McLaren-inspired livery. Brilliant start, but unfortunately a spin kind of set him back. Conamilia in P13. Robert Escarado in P14. Maximilian Constein, unfortunately that collision with Will Redford put him in 15th, but he was running brilliant lap times. He was actually the 4th fastest guy on track for much of that race, so could have been a top 5 finish, but unfortunately, day sit and died. Will Redford 17 laps down after that first lap contact, and then Fidel Fernandez, the self-spin coming out of the corkscrew into the wall, ended their day.
here's the corkscrew move on the final lap. This is where I think it all started, because the 6 car, goes for a gap that isn't going to be there if the 2 turns in. So Bernstorff leaves that little bit extra space whilst the 6 locks up. That's why Bernstorff is then deep, can't carry the speed through Cortez around the outside, hence why the lunge then comes later on, because the 2s had to get out the way of the 6. So he essentially says, well, if I've got to get out of your way if you're trying on the brakes, you can get out of my way. And that's why we got all of this towards the back end of the race. Always going to be close, always going to be trying it. You knew it was coming. I expected Cortez to cover it more. He didn't. The door was open, and there's the payback. Pushes him wide in the same way that happened to him a couple corners ago. Could have left a bit more space on exit, you'd have to say, but it was 6 of one, half a dozen of another across the final lap.
Yeah, I think like if he ran a little bit wider, he may have been able to cover for second. But again, that was the battle for second. The battle for first, almost non-existent. Bernstorff put a little bit of pressure on Greg Seitz, but then Seitz, in typical fashion for Rust Racing, just set sail, and it didn't really look behind him. Again, one of the fastest guy on track.
Yeah, it was, you could see it coming, I think is the easy way to put it. He got up to P1, and we knew he had the pace. If somebody like Bernstorff, potentially, given how easily he was defending from Cortez for most of that, if Bernstorff gets in front, then I think it's a very different story, because Seitz, we know, likes to get in a rhythm at the front and do his own thing. When he's put in a fight, he can make a bit of a meal of it at a time, but on this occasion he didn't have to. Plan played to perfection for himself. The clip of Menno there, who let's give credit to, because he was around a lot of people throughout that one, so good clean racing from David Menno that is always worth a little bit of credit.
That's going to wrap up our coverage here at Laguna Seca. Week 9 comes to an end, and Week 10 will head to USA Speedway, our final oval of the season. Congratulations to Greg Seitz on a job well done. And a reminder, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We have the Indy 500, the fixed race this weekend. Be sure to be on the lookout for that. But for myself, for Tom Davis and Hugo Luis, we say so long and have a good night.